Welcome back, everyone, to S1E1, the show where each week we pick a different pilot episode of a sitcom, watch only that episode, and judge it on what we saw, forgetting any knowledge of any future episodes we may or may not know about. This week we're going to be talking about Living Single. Living Single went 118 episodes over 5 seasons on Fox. We're going to be talking about episode 1, which was called Judging by the Cover, which originally aired August 22nd, 1993. So to start things off, I'm Jay Gags. With me, as always, the guys, Gordo, Joe, Ferg, and Nick. What's going on, guys?
Yellow.
Yo.
Hello.
What is long, black, and at the club?
So
It's a dick. I think she means a dick. I'm pretty sure she meant a dick. That's the answer to that question.
We'll get to that in a minute. But just to start things off, has anybody seen Living Single before we watched episode 1 and record this episode?
I think I saw all of them when it was new. I watched it pretty regularly.
I don't really remember this show. I did notice that it's very obviously in the Family Matters set, but
I remember a good chunk of the show, but I can't verify that I've seen all 118 episodes, but I definitely watched a share of it back in the day. I mean, I haven't rewatched it. It originally aired in 93, so 5 seasons, so it was done by like 98 or so, and I don't think I've watched it since then, so it's been a while.
This is going to be the most 90s feeling show we've done so far.
It is very 90s feeling. The outfits, I also want to note, too, this is the second show so far that we have done with prominent use of the word foin, which I'm very excited about. We haven't heard foin since Mr. Cooper, and it's like my favorite way to say that word.
Yeah, so I mean, I think like what makes things feel more 90s or whatever is when it's like a cooler show and they're going more for like trendy things that are happening, like a show like Home Improvement, let's say, they're not really doing anything that's like super time sensitive. You know what I mean? So like all modern style trends or music isn't going to really get referenced much. So it kind of stays a little more timeless, I think. But where a show like this that's very in tune with what was going on in the community at that specific time with, whether it's artists that they reference or music, things like that, it will kind of lock you into that time period a little bit more.
Hey, Jay, you know what else makes it seem like it's the 90s too?
What's that?
In the intro music, they actually say like 90s world.
Oh, yeah.
They do.
Yeah, that's true.
In a 90s
So
kind of
that's
world,
also-
I'm glad I have my girls. Keep your head up. What?
Yeah, pegs
Yeah,
that for the
Keep
90s.
your head up.
I was
right.
expecting you to have a joke, and you were just dead serious.
I know. It's like,
Yeah, I thought that was
it was a
leading
very
to
like
something.
deadpan delivery too. Yeah, so I mean, that's the intro right there. So any opinions of the intro in itself? There's not much to it really. There was
not
like
a lot
this,
going on.
Yeah, there was like a
Dancing.
silhouette of a girl dancing, and then there was like, just kind of the showing the cast off and just a couple little cutaway clips, which were weird because they were like, there was the one like they're all in where the magazine gets done and it
The
pans
office?
over and there's
Their
just like one
publishing
of them
office?
like is just standing. I don't know. There's not a lot to it, but it was fine. And that song is one of those timeless songs for whatever reason. Like of all the show intros, like I'll never forget that. It's short, not much to it. I think Queen Latifah probably did the vocals on that song.
Yeah, she is like the main part.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's been in my head since 1993. Like I can sing it at any time.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, when you were asking earlier whether or not we saw it, as soon as I remember seeing it, it's Ovaltine when he came up.
Ovaltine?
Ovaltine.
Wait,
No,
isn't it
you were right.
Overton
You
with
were
an
right.
R?
Overton.
Instantly brought me
Yeah,
back.
Overton with an R, not an L. He's not Ovaltine. It's Overton.
Overton.
Oh,
As a
More
child.
Ovaltine, please.
You said Ovaltine.
You said Ovaltine, like the drink Ovaltine.
That's what I'm
Overton,
saying.
yeah.
As a kid, I always thought his name was Ovaltine, and that's why I liked the show and tuned in every week, because the guy named Ovaltine.
Ferg just loves a chocolatey beverage.
In reality, I fucking hate Ovaltine.
When I saw him come up, it instantly, I remember the show. And same thing with the intro music.
Ferg actually signed up for his first email because he thought it was Yoo-Hoo.
This was one of those shows that I thought I was going to remember more, but I didn't remember any of it, like almost at all.
It was surprisingly very vivid to me as I watched it. There wasn't like, I felt like I was just watching it a day before.
It's weird. The main thing I remember is Ovaltine dating the what's the one who's like spacey.
Sinclair?
Sinclair.
No,
Sinclair,
Kevin.
Yeah.
Kevin?
Sinclair!
This is one of those
Sinclair.
shows too, where like when they made it, I'm sure they didn't expect it to seem as dated as it was. But now when you look back at it, you're like, your whole life is like, you run a small magazine and you have a giant office in Brooklyn. Like everything about that now is just completely not happening.
Like I said, the more trendy you try to be, the more that's just going to happen with time. And you play that edge. And I don't know if do you make a show under the idea that like, let's try to make something that's going to last forever? Or do you try to make a show that's, so in tune with what's going on right now that it's going to captivate people in the moment? I guess that's a tricky balance.
It's hard too, because like I imagine when they were writing this, they were like, hey, we're going to do a show and it's about all these women run this magazine, right? They do this thing where it's an all women thing, right? It's early 90s, but you're never going to think that there aren't going to be magazines anymore. So you think that's probably going to be a little more evergreen than it is. You don't expect there to be sort of the death of print media.
Yeah, and there was a thing that I was seeing that, people link this show to being maybe the inspiration for a lot of shows like Friends and stuff that came after. And then there's kind of this criticism where like here it was like they wanted something that showed a lot of like strong black women who were in, prominent positions, had good jobs, like Queen Latifah's character like ran this magazine, and then you had, Maxine was a lawyer, good jobs. Whereas like with Friends, it was like a folk singer and a failed actor and barista, and like they had more like lower tier jobs. And no disrespect, because I've done those jobs, but
when were you a failed folk singer?
I don't talk about it.
I feel like Gordon and I can both put that on our resume, but I don't know if you have that one.
I haven't said I did but and Gordo was a barista.
That's true.
And Gordo worked at the Christmas Dove, which we've talked about in a couple weeks prior.
From last week with his boss, was that your boss, the Heat Miser?
Every time, I don't want to get into it because we've talked about it so much, and it has nothing to do with what we're talking about now.
Nope.
But as I've listened back to old episodes, when we talk about the Christmas Dove, all I hear is Home Alone 2 when the owner of the toy store goes, turtle doves. when he has like,
I can have two? Well, 2 turtle doves.
Yeah. So, all right, let's just get right to the opening scene. So it opens right up with Sinclair answering the phone. And she's kind of using, we find out it's Flavor Magazine is the magazine that she works for. And she's using this like British accent when she answers the phone. And Khadijah, played by Queen Latifah, walks up to her and is like, what are you doing? Like, Sinclair's trying to make it sound like they're a more international brand. And when gets spoken to by Khadijah, switches to like a more like what sounded like kind of like a hip hop DJ of the 90s kind of voice.
Do the voice.
I don't remember what she said.
Trying to trick someone into doing the voice so later on we can be like, do you believe they tried to do the voice?
Yeah. But, I think at that point of the episode, I thought really early on, they were really trying to flex her comedic side because from my understanding, the two of them, I can't remember it's Kim, there's two Kims. It's Kim Fields and then...
Are you talking about Khadijah? I mean, Regina is Kim Fields.
That's Kim Fields. So it's Kim Jones.
You're thinking of Sinclair's Kim Coles.
Kim Coles. So Kim Cole and Queen Latifah both had development deals with Fox going into the creation of the show. So I don't know if the original plan was to put them on the show together or if they were both just kind of under contract with Fox. But I know from what I'd read, both of them already had deals with Fox for development.
Interesting.
And I thought at that point early on, they were really trying to flex her comedic style because as much as the show is kind of focused around Queen Latifah, she was a big player in that they were high on her going into this.
Well, Kim Coles was in Living Color for the first season too, so she was already
which
on Fox.
Gordo almost watched instead of this.
Yeah, Gordo almost watched Living Color instead of Living Single, which is funny because if you watch season 1, you still would have seen Kim Coles, which would have worked out slightly.
I guess, yeah,
for you, but
kind of.
But I don't remember a lot of. So she was doing that, and like I don't know, I vaguely remember that. I remember watching Living Color a little bit as a kid, but like I watched that way later on. But I don't remember much of what Queen Latifah was doing acting wise. I remember she had that story arc in Fresh Prince.
Yeah, she was on Fresh Prince a couple different... I want to say, and I can't remember clearly, but I want to say she was on Fresh Prince multiple times and had played different characters on that show at different times. But I'm not 100% sure.
Characters. I remember there's a whole story arc where she has a crush on Will, and Will doesn't find her attractive, but she's rich, and she keeps buying him stuff. And they
she takes him to the basketball game in the limo, right?
Yeah,
something like that.
And then the life lesson is she gets confidence, and he realizes he's a shithead, and that was like the sort of thing about it. But that's like I don't remember anything. I can't think of anything else she may have done acting wise before that.
But her music career had already taken off.
Yeah,
so
she would have been like 3 albums in by this point.
So she was already famous in her own.
She was on all that quite a bit.
Well, that would have been post this though.
Yeah.
Yeah, by a little bit. Yeah.
I was gonna say, was she an actor at this point, or was she
More of a
mostly
musician.
I
Yeah,
mean,
mostly
she's
musician
always
still.
gonna.
She was always a musician.
because she's done so much acting over the years. Still, she still acts. But I think in my head, I'll
can
always think
call
of
it
her as a
acting.
musician first.
Wait,
Yeah.
what was that, Ferk?
That if you can call it acting.
All right, so we already have one not fan of Queen Latifah.
I thought she was fine on the show, but we'll get into it as I guess we break down all the other.
I mean, I don't
scenes.
think she's bad in this show, but I think she's trying really hard to play. I feel like you can see that she's acting sometimes, whereas like
Yeah.
if you look at Eric Alexander, who plays Max, whereas I feel like she's the entire episode, you're just like, okay, this is obviously somebody who's supernatural at this, and she's just like going.
Right.
Whereas Queen Latifah seems like she's having a hard time keeping up with them.
I agree, and each of them I feel is playing a character. Like one's the snooty rich one, one's the airhead, one's the strong woman and stuff. But she's playing Queen Latifah. Like it's Queen Latifah playing Queen Latifah.
I'm sure a lot of that was based to be like a situation kind of like the Fresh Prince, where you're not playing yourself, but you're playing an exaggerated version of yourself, personality-wise. Anyways, the only other
I
thing
don't
from
like her personality.
also leading
Ferg,
into
out of
this,
the box, so much Queen
I know.
Latifah hate. What's going on?
show your hand any earlier, but
I didn't say I was gonna.
Hey, I'm gonna say if you're listening,
Yeah.
Queen Latifah, I'm a fan of both the music and
Oh, what's your
Okay.
favorite Queen Latifah song?
I actually like a song where she's not rapping, she's singing, called "Cue the Rain." It's a pretty recent song too, probably within the last 10 years. It's a really good song, and she
Man,
sings.
I was
in it.
trying to put Joe on the spot, and you ruined it. Now he can say, "Oh, Saves the Rain's my favorite too."
I could say Joe has never heard of the song "Cue the Rain" by Queen Latifah, but trust me, decent song for those of you listening. Give it a shot.
I can't remember the name of it. The song she sings on the New Jack City soundtrack is probably my favorite because I love that soundtrack.
Anyways, I wanted to bring up the set. Any opinions of the set, where the magazine is, like that office building?
Nick had mentioned, did you say it was Family Matters set?
The house is 100% the Family Matters set. They
Is that a
changed
fact,
the
or is
furniture.
that something you noticed?
I
No,
didn't
it's
pick
something
up
I
on
noticed.
that.
Just go look
I
at
don't-
it. It's
Because I
I'll
didn't-
have to
I
look
didn't
at it.
notice that.
A lot of those
No.
houses are similar, but I feel like those shows overlapped.
No, because okay, so you have the living room, right? And you have like the famous Family Matters living room with that stairway that comes down to it up in the left-hand corner.
Yeah, but the Full House is like that too.
No, it's
except
not.
for that little.
You can see the entire stairway in the Full House house. And then in the kitchen has that little bar in between the rest of the kitchen and the dining area and the sink and stuff like that. Same exact thing. And then it has the same door that leads to Steve Urkel's house, the same windows. They moved the kitchen table in the fore shot instead of having it in the back where it was in Family. But I'm telling you, it's the same set.
So just
I'm
the
intrigued by
pilot.
this.
You're right.
What?
They used that set for the pilot.
For the pilot, did you know
Oh.
the pilot episode of Living Single was shot on the Family Matters set?
Yeah, it was identical. I'm actually surprised that I was the only one who noticed it.
So this is, again, like Mr. Cooper when they filmed on the
Just the
Growing
pilot
Pains set.
episode, yeah.
For just the pilot and they move after.
So this is this is just them, the network not wanting to invest a shitload of money into a show before they see it. So they say, okay, we'll just redress this set. You'll film the pilot here, then we'll look at the pilot and see what happens after that.
Honestly, I think that's a smart way to do things.
It is, yeah, honestly.
You know?
Yeah.
It's already built. Just change how it looks a little bit.
But no, I was talking more about just because of this part of the scene, like where the magazine is. Anything about that? I mean, nothing really stands out. It looks pretty basic. There's not much to it.
I got something. You know what kind of bugged me about the office? The elevator opened up right into the middle of the office. Like there was no hallway or anything. It just was like a straight elevator into the office.
My
I think that's
doctor
not
was like that. Yeah, I've seen it
uncommon.
a bunch in Boston and stuff. Yeah, my doctor's open just right into the office building. It's a weird thing, but I think maybe it's like an older building thing where like
Yeah.
they just weren't designed that way.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's the first time I've seen that on a television show that we've covered.
I know
But,
that's
like,
actually
went right
common
up.
with penthouse or like top level floors because they usually make those bigger. So they just incorporate the elevator into the actual living area instead of having a hallway.
No,
so
that makes sense.
if they were on like the top floor or something and it was just like a huge office, then that's why there's no hallway, I guess.
Yeah, they were in Brooklyn in 1993, so I'm guessing they're probably like an old factory type building.
You know what I was trying to? I don't remember which show came first. I'm assuming Living Single. Living Single probably came first, but ironically enough, kind of reminded me of like Spin City, which was also another magazine.
Yeah, I can get that vibe.
And they were it was kind of a similar setup for that office too, for their magazine.
Wait, Spin City was a magazine?
Yeah, was that the one with David Spade?
No, Spin City's the
No.
one with Michael J. Fox.
Spin
Oh,
City
okay.
was the
Oh,
so
mayor.
what am I thinking?
They
Just
worked for
Shoot
the
Me.
mayor.
Just
Just
shoot
thinking
me.
of Just
Yeah,
Shoot
yeah.
Me.
magazine
Yeah.
one. Yeah,
Okay,
that would have been a
okay.
little later, but very similar, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But I I didn't even pick up on it, but I was thinking the same thing, Jay. So
Yeah.
don't worry, we're getting
And
the name wrong.
didn't you confuse Spin City for another show we did before, or News Radio, right?
With Spin City and News Radio.
Spin City's coming up soon, by the way, because it was going to be one of my next picks.
But I knew you meant Just Shoot Me, and it didn't even click that you didn't say that. You said the other show. So.
Clearly didn't click with me either. And then we meet Regina's character, or Regine, as she's referenced to the whole episode. Joe, I guess you would appreciate this. She gives me a super Blanche
Boner.
from Golden Girls vibe. Her character
Really?
is like a young Blanche. Yeah. That she's like very like,
Really? I got Hillary Banks from her. I didn't get Blanche.
Well, to be
Wait,
fair,
who
if
are
you
we
want to
talking
find my
about?
sweet spot, it's a good mix of Blanche and Hillary Banks. So I
Yeah.
think that's maybe why I enjoy her performance so much.
I thought it was a
The
very
bougie
similar
one, Nick.
vibe. Yeah.
Oh, Regine?
Yeah, I would say if you looked at if there was a prequel to Golden Girls and there was like a younger Blanche, the characters would be very similar.
So for anybody who remembers, is it last week's episode and we did,
No.
was it 2 weeks ago?
Might have
A
been
few
further,
weeks ago.
actually.
It was a few weeks
A
ago.
few weeks ago, we did Mama's Family, and everyone turned against me for my weird predilections.
Yeah, for those of you who want to go back into the archives a few weeks, if you haven't already listened to Mama's Family, we discovered that Joe discovered himself to old ladies on sitcoms, and I don't want to dive too deep into it because it was
Just
a
gonna
little
say, Rue
disturbing.
McClanahan is walking sex.
How often has your wife turned down old lady play?
We're actually not. We're waiting to have sex until she gets older, so we're madly attracted to her.
Sorry. Yeah, I don't touch anyone without an AARP card.
But in 25 years, I'm gonna rock her world.
I'm saving myself.
I won't touch you till you look like Mrs. Garrett.
Speaking of facts of life,
Yeah,
Girls,
well, that's what I want to
girls.
say. Kim Fields, who played Regine, I mean, best known from like Facts of Life, which was a Different Strokes spinoff. She was on a handful of episodes of Different Strokes, but had a really long career on the Facts of Life.
Facts of Life is one of those shows too that you forget when you go back and see the reruns because we watched it a bunch as kids. That it started with just like they were little kids, and by the time the show ended, you were like, I think you're too old to be in school. Like it ended up running a course that was
They had a
way
really
longer than
long
I remember.
run, and I'm sure at some point in time we'll do that show as well.
Facts of Life also has a great spin-off episode if we ever do. I think maybe someday we can do like a month of episodes where you do the backdoor pilots for shows that never happened. Because
Oh
there's a
yeah,
great backdoor pilot in Facts of Life.
How would we find those episodes?
Because they're part of the seasons of actual shows.
yeah. Like so on The Office when they
right,
did the
okay.
farm episode, that
Yep.
was a backdoor pilot. Is them essentially sneaking in a premise of a new spin-off show within the actual series.
Right, yeah.
So it's not as bad as people say.
The farm.
The Farm?
Yeah.
I thought it would have been great. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
that would
great
have been
episode.
awesome. And I'm
We could
so
dig into that. I mean,
upset,
that's
yeah.
a whole other
Yeah,
conversation. But essentially,
yeah.
if the farm wasn't planted in the middle of an episode of The Office, where you could compare it to The Office in live time, I think it would do better. If they waited a year
That's
or
where they
two,
screwed up.
Yeah.
They could have still added that as an Office episode, but not had the Office scenes because
Yeah.
you were in your head comparing because you jumping back and forth.
if The Office had
wrong
ended
show.
and then a year later you would have been so hungry for those characters to return at any capacity, I think people would have embraced it because they would have just wanted more.
I remember laughing out loud hysterically when Dwight shot his dead grandmother 3 times with a shotgun.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, this is amazing. And then I found out that never got picked up. And I was like, damn, that could have been something.
But we'll find a way to talk about this type of stuff later down the road, or maybe we just do an episode dedicated to backdoor pilots and discuss a bunch of them.
And his sister's son on that show ended up being in Fuller House, didn't he?
I have no idea what he
remember.
looks like or who
Yeah,
he
I'd
is.
have to
yeah, I
check
don't
it
remember
out.
that. But I do know that Thomas Middleditch is the brother. So
Yes.
we
That's
wouldn't
right.
have gotten the same Silicon Valley, but I think he turned out to be a sketchball too, so who knows?
It seemed like it was wasn't as bad. Not that it was good, but it wasn't as bad. Like I think he like slapped someone's ass and like it became a big story. But we'll see.
I'm
I
sure
guess.
that's the tip of the iceberg for that too. He seems like
Well,
a-
yeah.
In any
Bozo
event, though,
deluxe.
we should probably get back to Living Single because we have a lot of episode to cover still. So let's get back into Regine. Again, she's, like I said, very sexual in nature. Joe, you referenced it right in the beginning of the episode when she walks in. She's talking about the limo that's waiting outside for her, but she says what? It's long, black, and what?
I think she says it's long and black and at the curb. I think I said at the club at first because I was
yeah,
maybe picturing Overton hanging out with his
with his
rich
tongue
man
out.
hood.
Yeah.
Yeah, just donging out at the club. Montel Jordan playing in the background.
when
Crazy
she
oval
clarifies when she clarifies that it's referring to the stretch limo, and Khadijah goes, "That'll go great with your stretch marks."
Yes.
It's a great line.
That was a good
Yeah.
line.
And so she's talking about her date who ate caviar from her cleavage and drank champagne from her shoe.
Yeah. And-
Yeah, and they must have gotten real drunk because of her big feet.
You know what they say, you can't build a cathedral on an over, right?
I also
yeah.
thought that Khadijah was an incredibly weird name to pick until I realized that is Queen Latifah's real name.
Is that really her first?
Yeah,
I
I
honestly
didn't
had
know
no
that. Yeah.
idea.
I didn't know that.
I had no idea.
Yeah, she is Khadijah James.
I think her official name would be Your Highness Queen Khadijah Latifah.
On your knees. Arise, Sir Nicholas. Khadijah Passaro.
But yeah, and I think at
You
some point she also
fine.
referred to Regine's boyfriend as a canine catch. But yeah, that whole he ate caviar from my cleavage. Like, we never made it out of the limo. I'm like, I don't know if I want to eat fish eggs out of someone's cleavage. I don't know. Like,
I'm allergic to caviar, but all I could think of was if given the option, if they were like, you cannot be allergic to this, do you want to eat this out of cleavage? But like, oh God, no eggs? Oh, gross. Why?
hey, how did Joe die?
Maybe instead of doing that, if the girl came out and she was wearing them all as a bikini a la Ferg instead of in the cleavage, she just had a giant caviar bikini.
Come get it,
on.
Joe.
That is disgusting.
If Joe had the opportunity to eat Cheez-Its out of Rue McClanahan's cleavage.
In a heartbeat. I'd do it to her now.
Oh,
As long as the Jesus didn't make me sick, I'd be stoked.
Gross. dude.
rest in peace, Rue.
I'm always thinking about her.
Oh man. There's a lot of
Derailing
jokes.
early tonight.
Yeah, there's a lot of jokes. They kind of hit you with one-liners back to back to back in this scene. So there's like we can't touch on them all. But one that flagged me that I was a little curious about was, I think it was Khadijah talking to Regine and said that men dump you like Eddie Murphy albums, and I was a little confused by it. I was like, was this like a knock on his recording career as a musician? Because like obviously his
Party All the Time's a great song, all right? They better
But that's
not
also
be
a
insulting
huge
it.
seller. That wasn't like people look back on that song and make fun of it, which they shouldn't because like
Not
you
me,
said,
it's a
Ferg,
great
that song's
fucking
legitimately
song.
good. Yeah,
But also that was like a huge hit. It's not like that song didn't sell well.
right.
And all of his comedy albums sold well. And maybe by this point in 93, he was in that weird throes of like in between movies. But he would have just done like Beverly Hills Cop 3. Nutty Professor is right around the corner. Like Eddie Murphy
Yeah, I'd have
wasn't
to
in
like
a
look
bad
at his
spot
like
here.
discography and look at like his music career at that point. But I was a little like, I don't know if I totally get the joke. I know his music career wasn't like, it's not what he wants it to be, like other than that one song. But like his comedy albums probably outsold her music albums at that point. Like he was.
Oh, I'm sure
the
like
biggest,
Raw and stuff sold way more.
Yeah, he was like the
than-
biggest comedian at the time. So I just thought that was kind of like a weird joke to throw in.
I mean, you don't just become friends with Rick James when you're not talented.
Right.
Okay, never mind. So in 1993, Eddie Murphy released his last album on Motown. I had to look this up. I don't like to use my phone during episodes, but this is going to kill me if I didn't figure it out. It was called Love's All Right, but it also peaked at number 80 on the US charts.
I mean, even that's
Which
not
is-
terrible. Yeah.
That's not bad. 2 singles released, including a song called What's Up With You?
That's
As
all
one
Michael
word.
Jackson. That song's terrible.
Michael Jackson, I Was King, featuring Shabba Ranks. Yes, I mean, Michael Jackson's a nightmare, and I'm glad he's dead, but
The whole music video is them just like over like a green screen, like in the clouds singing. It's a terrible video. Terrible.
at that point, does he bend Michael Jackson? Does Michael Jackson bend Eddie Murphy over and make him look at a picture of Robin Hood while he stares at his little tight butthole?
No.
That one went over my head, man.
That's if I know exactly what he's talking about.
Yeah, did nobody see the HBO documentary where the entire thing is Michael Jackson just made kids look at the Robin Hood poster? And,
It was
not
a
Robin
lot
Hood,
of like child goatsy, but yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of Michael Jackson was into kid goatsy.
Child goatee.
But, oh, man. Okay.
Wow.
Jesus Christ.
If we
This is
named
good.
our
You
episode,
get
you
could
get on
name
us
this
for
one
talking about
Child
farts
Goatee.
and then you rifle child goatsy into conversation like it's normal.
I'm sorry. I mean, I hate Michael Jackson anyway, but if anybody mentions Michael Jackson to me, the absolute first thing I think of is him
A
just,
child goatee.
giving himself pink eye while burying his face into a kid's asshole.
Anyway, so back to the episode. So we find out around here the overlying theme of the entire episode, which is Sinclair messed up. And because of that, didn't send like whatever paperwork was necessary, but Maya Angelou was supposed to be on the cover of the magazine. She was going to be on the cover of this month's Flavor magazine. So now it's going to be Khadijah's quest, basically, to find a new person for the cover is going to be happening throughout the entire episode.
Yeah, we develop a subplot for the whole thing is who can we get on the cover of this magazine?
Right.
Mike Tyson, because I know where he is.
Yeah. So that was a nice, like, again, but that was another joke that's very much like, very for the time. But yeah, I mean, obviously, Mike Tyson is so, Mike Tyson's so famous that story stays like obvious, like that people will always remember that time and get that joke when you can watch it, 20 years later, it still works. But
How did Mike Tyson, so that joke I just find kind of cavalier that a bunch of women would make a joke about getting Mike Tyson on there when he's at the time in jail being convicted of rape.
Especially this show about strong women.
Like strong women, yeah, like this shithead rapist is the joke.
It wasn't rape, it was assault.
Yeah,
He went
he
to
like
jail for
threw a
assault.
TV at a lady or something like that.
I'm
is what
pretty
I
sure
heard.
it was for rape.
Didn't he throw someone down a set of stairs too?
That's
no,
what I
it was all
thought.
about his ex-wife. It was everything was in regards to his, and I think it was a combination of both. Not to go too dark here, but I think it might have been a little bit of both. I don't remember
But
clearly enough.
likely
We were really
some
young.
sexual assault stuff.
Well,
was the
in
reason
he was
in jail.
convicted. He was convicted of rape in '92. Beauty pageant contestant Desiree Washington alleged that the former
There it
heavyweight
is.
champion of the world had forced her to engage in sexual intercourse.
So like a bunch of strong women are making jokes about this rapist. And then afterwards, he's had a career ever since he came out. He gets to do other boxing matches. He's on TV. He's at WrestleMania. Like, I don't know. It bums me out because that dude sucks. But if anybody tells him I said that, don't give him my address because I'm still terrified of him.
Mike Tyson, if you want to hit me up, I'll give you his address. I'll give you his new address.
Nothing would make me laugh harder than for some reason seeing Mike Tyson kick down Joe's door and just fucking leveling
You
him.
son of a bitch.
Imagine the sheer terror, like in that moment. Like,
I heard what you said.
I mean, let's take a swing at him. I stand by my comments. Fuck him. He's a rapist. Fuck him. But
So, anyways, yeah. Again, to move on. So let's get out of the scene. Go straight to the new scene. The first scene that's at the house, and we see Overton and Sinclair are sitting together in the apartment. We don't know whose apartment it is at this point. We just see the two of them together. But he's like the handyman. He's just joking around while they're kind of like over a vacuum cleaner.
This is my
And,
vacuum clean.
You could tell, like, right from the bat that these two very much like each other. You don't know if they're together or not at this point, but, like, they're both very smitten being around one another.
very flirty.
Yeah.
Love it. So much chemistry.
And then when the doorbell rings, we meet Kyle. And the first thing that came to mind when Kyle walked in was, oh my God, style was so different in the 90s.
And he's like hip, right? Like he's
Yeah.
on top of his style, and it's
Yeah.
just a crazy style.
Yeah, and it was like, for that time, he's not wearing anything that wacky. He's actually in good fashion and, like, he's still a well-dressed man, but, like, the suspenders and tie were both, like, very loud prints and not matching and over a yellow and white striped shirt. It
And
was
he's
like,
so
that would never work
confident about
today.
it.
Well, but at that time, that wasn't considered a weird thing to wear. He was very fashion forward.
He's dressed like the Mask in this episode.
Somebody
The pajamas,
stop
I
it.
guess. Like that's all I could think of.
Yeah, so I think in that moment, Sinclair runs out to, like, get drinks, and that's when you realize through the conversation with Kyle and Overton that they're not together. Like, as much as it looks like they like one another, that's not what's happening with them yet. And Kyle, he has, like, this weird tone that he uses at times.
He gets a random accent, right?
He
At
comes
random
in and out
times.
of, like, this like almost like Shakespearean type
Like
voice that he
bougie
comes in and out of.
accent.
Yeah, I noticed that too. I thought it was very strange.
He's and through the run, not to get ahead into future episodes, but that's just how he's always presented that character.
Yeah, Shakespearean is a good description. Yeah, he gets like classic thespian voice.
Right.
I'm classically trained. It's like-
And there was a fun back and forth between the two of them when they were talking about Kyle's 3-second violation, referring to a quicker than expected intercourse session apparently that he had, and he said he had a mental block.
Yeah, they have a lot of premature jokes in this whole scene.
And he gets on Overton basically like, at least I have sex. And, like, Overton's like, well, if I did have sex, I wouldn't be having any 3-second violations.
By the way, his retort was way too late. Because he insults Overton.
His name's not Ovaltine.
I know, but I can't shake that. But anyway,
You shouldn't shake Ovaltine. You should leave
he
it the way
insults
it is.
him.
Stir it.
People say other stuff, and then he goes back to it. You don't get a quip that like soon after, like that late.
I just like that the quip isn't he's like, well, at least I'm having sex. He's not like your classic would be like that writing would be like, oh, I got laid last night. You weren't even there. You wouldn't even know. This guy flat out is like, yes, I am not having sex, but if I were to have sex, which I love so much, it's so honest.
There's definitely like an innocence about his character that's very endearing at all times.
That he's not trying to be like higher above him and like smack him down and be like, oh, I get girls all the time. It's just flat out like, well, if I ever do, this is what'll happen.
I was going to say, both of them, too, between Sinclair and him, this is where their innocence, I think is a good word to put it, because this you kind of get the same, that they're the male and female version of each other.
There's a very childlike innocence to both of them.
Yeah.
You know?
They're both very simple. To put it away.
Like, yeah, like fun-spirited types, yeah.
Obviously makes sense together. Like, they seem like they'd be a good couple.
I also like when Overton was talking about his hammer, because it was a family heirloom that like went from like, you know, it got passed down from like father to father to father, like his grandfather to who he thought was his father, and then down to him.
It's a good, like, quick little joke.
Like, it's a family heirloom. It turns out it's not even his family,
not part
really.
of his family.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
again,
not
it goes
my
to the
family.
simplicity.
Yeah.
It's not even a family heirloom.
And then if we want to keep this ongoing theme of not the best humans on earth that are referenced in the show, Khadijah walks in at some point and she's on the phone still trying to find someone for the cover, and it doesn't end well. And when she hangs up, she's like, I should have said I eat Jell-O. So obviously she was trying to get Bill Cosby for the cover.
Cosby, yeah, because at that point in 1982, Bill Cosby was in the reboot of You Bet Your Life, which was a 1940s game show. So they rebooted that with him, because that would have been the last season, I think, of the Cosby Show. Because Eric, like Maxine,
the first last season.
well, of the actual Cosby Show, right? Because do you remember the last couple seasons of the Cosby Show? Maxine moves in. She's like Claire's sister's daughter, maybe. There's like that whole sort of last season, and like Adam Sandler shows up for a while. There's like all these kids. It kind of goes around to the kids for a while, and that's sort of like the focus of it. And like Alan Payne from New Jack City, we just mentioned earlier, he's like the boyfriend for a while. There's like that whole last. It sucks. I love the Cosby Show and I hate Bill Cosby, and I'm like, these things are swimming in my head where I'm like, I can't remember, but I can't go back and watch either.
Max rings the doorbell. She pretty much enters like the room like a ball of fire, and you could tell really early because she's talking about what happened at work. She was dealing with what must have been like a divorce case, and basically got her client everything, like milked this dude for every penny he had. After that, you see like her conversing with Kyle a little bit, and you can kind of see little rumblings that there's some sexual tension between the two of them, like as he exits. Did you guys pick up on that at all?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
you can tell. I mean, like those two are matched well the same way that Sinclair and Overton
right.
matched well.
But in a more explosive way where, you know, Sinclair and Overton are a little bit more happy and free-spirited.
Can you teach me to football?
You have Kyle and Maxine, who are both very strong personality types. And, like, you could just tell that's going to be an explosive situation when and if that happens.
And then he'll finally be able to tell Overton that he did have sex, and everyone gets to win at that point.
And as the guys are leaving, you hear Sinclair make a comment about Overton, and like Khadijah does not seem to approve of this at all. And she's like, you never can conceive a child with this man. And I was thinking, why? Like, what's wrong with Overton that she's so like...
It's not that. It's that they're both... It's a joke that they're both dumb.
Yeah, I think it's more fear that like the two dumb people having a baby will produce a even more dumb baby.
Oh,
She's
I
cool
just
with
thought,
them being together. She just doesn't want.
I didn't
Yeah,
get that
he's like a
vibe.
tall, good-looking, well-put-together guy. Like, I don't think that's the issue. I think
Yeah,
it's
when
more
I
that-
saw it, I the way I read that at the time was just that she didn't approve of the two of them getting together, and I'm like, why? What's wrong with them?
No, she just doesn't want them procreating.
We get another doorbell ring, and that's when we see Regine's date, which is Brad, who all the girls seem pretty instantly smitten by as soon as he walks in.
Yeah, they're pretty
And,
shitty. They're hitting on him
Max
in front
takes
of her.
note of his big feet right away. That was like, because they were all talking about different things that they liked about him, and she was just like, and he's got big feet.
Has this ever been correlated? The big feet, big
Big
neck
feet,
thing?
big feet, big meat.
Yeah, like, has it ever actually been correlated, or is it just like a dumb... Like, I can't assume that that's correct. I mean, if you're the Big Show, I'm assuming you've got a giant hog, right? Just because your whole body is massive.
For those of you who want to go back to our Big Show episode.
But, like, if you're just a guy who's 6'1" and has size 12 feet, is it proof positive that it happens? And then if you don't, is it even worse when you go home and someone's like, I saw his feet, and you're like...
The only thing that I do know is proof positive about your feet is that it is the exact length between your wrist and your elbow. Your foot will always be this long.
What?
Well, I guarantee it will be.
I don't think you're right.
Prove me wrong.
Man.
I don't know, man.
You know what there is a correlation of, though, with big feet?
If you say big socks again, I'm going to jump through the screen
Nope.
and punch you.
Nope.
You've done
No,
that joke
no,
like 4
no.
times.
No, not at all. You have to wear big shoes.
There's
Oh,
the
good
screen
Lord,
grab
Gordo.
Ferg I'm going to use with his foot up against his arm. But yeah, to go back real quick, if any
One
of you
my
guys
ribs
want to,
went into my lungs.
if any of you guys want to message Joe directly and tell him what your wiener size and your
It's not true.
shoe size are, just send that straight to
Look,
Joe.
it is. I can see that it's true.
I want messages of photos instead. I don't want
Just photos.
Oh, no
Just
shit,
photos,
it kind of is.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. Oh, look at that. Okay, we proved something here.
All right, guys, we're getting through science here today. Good work.
Like the Mythbusters.
More like the Dick Busters, right?
So okay, so what are your opinions of Brad when we meet him? He seems like an attractive guy. Seems to be of some money. Like
Yeah, good-looking guy, but kind of smarmy.
Is
It's
he
a
from
sitcom.
something else? Because I've seen him on something else.
he's in a lot
and
of stuff. I
couldn't
looked him up and I
put my
can't remember
finger
his
on it.
name off the top of my head, but he's one of those guys who I don't think he had a long stint doing any one thing, but that guy's been in a million things. So he's had a pretty long career.
Yeah, he
and I
seemed
think
pretty
he's
familiar
still-
as like a 90s
Wait, what's his
character
name?
guy. Brad on the show.
I looked it up, and his actual name was odd enough that I could not remember it.
Okay. Brad or Rad?
Brad.
Because I thought they kept saying Rad at one point. I don't know.
They did after the B sound.
Yeah, but rad.
Oh, B-Rad? You guys know B-Rad? I think that's one of the guys in, oh God, I lost the joke, sorry. I was trying to make fun of what's like a B-Real guy. Who's that?
B Real's from Cypress Hill, right?
Cypress Hill, there it is. B-Rad, isn't that the guy from Cypress Hill? See, I made the joke work this time.
How did he get the name Brad on a show of someone's named Ovaltine and Khadijah and
Well, there's a Kyle. I mean, not like in like
Yeah.
Regina,
everybody.
Kyle.
yeah.
even Sinclair's like
Sinclair's
that's
not a
very
more
normal
common name either.
but-
Yeah, but I don't know. Any opinions of like where we think this is going before? I mean, I know in the very next scene we kind of find out what's happening, but in a
Something was going to happen.
In a
I
sitcom
just
world,
got,
yeah.
Like I got a foreshadowing that like this isn't what it's supposed
if
to
it seems
be.
too good to be true, yeah,
Yeah.
like something's gonna
I
happen.
thought he
especially in a
was gonna
sitcom.
try to like hit on each roommate
Oh,
and-
okay, yep.
because
Oh, it's a good
he
call,
was
yeah.
flirting with them, but I was wrong.
So yeah, and we'll get into that. So the next scene, we're back at the magazine office. Woman walks in, goes up to Sinclair to take out a full page ad for her restaurant. And when Sinclair gets the check and reads the names, she recognizes Brad's name. She's like, "Oh, I know Brad." And she's like, "Oh, how do you know my husband?" And obviously, she's a bit panicked in that moment. Kind of runs off and tells Khadijah to run into the bathroom with her. And that was the end of the scene, which I thought was like really strange because it like cut to that scene. Like it was like a fade in, fade out. And then it's like a minute long clip and then it fades out of that scene, which I thought was just really, really weird.
The only reason why she recognizes that it's his restaurant is because the night before he tells them that he went to Le Cordon Bleu in France and that he runs this specific restaurant up in Uptown or in Brooklyn. I forget
I
where he
forget
said
where
it.
they said it is, yeah.
Yeah, but he said that I run this
They said
restaurant.
like Hell's Kitchen or something like that.
Yeah, but I mean, hey, he went to Le Cordon Bleu.
I was just going to say, Gordo, as somebody who's worked in the culinary field for a long time, how much
Yeah.
weight does Le Cordon Bleu hold?
The real Le Cordon Bleu
Yeah.
in France, or like the
real
American
one.
for-profit? No,
No, like the actual French.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that like I think that's where like the Michelin stars
That's where they originate
became
from,
a
right?
thing. Yeah, but like the real Le Cordon Bleu in France is the highest that you can be, like international. Like as
And
far
they're,
as
I'm
French
assuming, the
cuisine.
inventor of the recipe for chicken cordon bleu.
Someone's like, let's add some cheese and ham to this chicken.
To be fair, whoever did
It's
that is a
delicious.
fucking genius.
It's,
Yeah.
it's delicious.
How can you eat that though? I thought you were lactose intolerant.
To put it into perspective, Julia Child went there.
Joe can't eat bread. He can eat cheese.
I thought they gave him the bubble guts.
No,
I mean, we'll give
half
anybody
my
that.
diet's
It's not
cheese.
eat enough cheese.
Stop saying bubble guts. Like it's a normal thing. What's wrong with all you? Like
What's wrong with you?
Who's boner?
Who's boner?
You can't build a water cookie on a toilet.
That's the best one.
Yeah, I still
So-
don't know what that saying was supposed to be.
Can't
Joe
build
doesn't
an
either.
outhouse on a.
No, it's
Tree
from
house.
something. It's not
not.
my saying. I didn't grow up. Well, we're going back to big feet stuff again. I didn't grow up with particularly big feet or a weird lanky frame, so like no one ever said it to me, but I do have a body like an outhouse, so I guess it makes sense.
So anyways, all the girls in the next scene everyone's back home. Well, it's all the girls sans Regine, and they're kind of talking about the situation. They don't want to have to tell her, but they have to tell her. Obviously, cue a second later, and Regine walks in, and it's talking about everything going on with Brad and how they're about to go on a trip to Martha's Vineyard. Boys, we live very close to Martha's Vineyard. Has everyone been there? Has anyone not been there?
Never been.
I've never been there.
I've been.
Yeah, I've only been for like a couple days stint, but it is very close to us. It's weird to me. It's this like big, like international, I don't want to say internationally, but throughout the country, it's a very popular vacation spot, and we all live right there. And in total, we can count how many days we've all been there, like as a whole.
Wait, what spot? I missed this.
I only remember going there once, like as a kid. My aunt lived there.
Revere Beach?
Martha's Vineyard.
Martha's Vineyard?
I swear
Martha's
you all keep
Vineyard,
saying it at the
kid.
same time.
Yeah, I've never been to Revere Beach, Nick.
Yeah, Brad was going to take Regine on a trip to Revere Beach. But no, like, yeah, I thought it was, I mean, they're right in New York, so I guess it's not like a far trip or anything, but.
No. I mean, that's just especially if he's rich enough, like he just flies to Boston.
that's
and then
always been
hops
looked
on, like a puddle. I don't know if there's anybody flies to.
You might be able to fly direct.
Martha's
Isn't that
Vineyard.
literally the whole plot of Wings? Or people who go from the
I was gonna
vineyard
say,
to...
yeah.
No,
They're
it's
in
from
Nantucket.
Nantucket. Nantucket's much bigger.
Oh, I guess that's true. But I would imagine that same airline probably will take you the other 5 minutes.
Well,
to
like we have like
Vineyard.
Cape Air and stuff. Cape Air will
Yeah.
take you all around. I don't know what their stretch is towards New York, but once you can get to Boston, you can hop right on a plane directly to Martha's Vineyard or Nantucket or whatever.
I've never been to Nantucket either. Should we all go on a trip next summer? All right, next summer we're going to explore these areas.
We take
guys.
a Wings trip.
It's still summer now. We could do it now.
Time's not on our side right now.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. Gordo's about to fly the other end of the world.
Yeah, so at this point of the conversation is also when we realize that Khadijah, Sinclair, and Regine all live together. So the three of them live together and just not Maxine. But I guess you were never 100% sure who lived in that house until right at this point of the conversation.
Yeah, they never made that clear. I mean, they with Overton, like he was definitely a maintenance guy, but again, you don't know if that was just like a friend of theirs that they asked to call in, or you don't know what's up there.
I think you get pretty quickly that they're all pretty
Friendly.
close with each other and friendly.
Yeah.
Right.
If nothing else, they're pretty.
Yeah,
comfortable
you're not
with
coming
each other.
into this as we're meeting each other. You know what I mean? They've
Right.
obviously all known
Which
each
I
other,
think is
yeah.
a good way to. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's good to just enter the world instead of starting with an origin story, because those can be kind of dry pilots sometimes.
Yeah, like look at the first episode we ever did of Friends, right? Where one person knows Jennifer Aniston and everybody else doesn't, and then you're sort of at this like, oh, we're gonna explain who this person is now, which sometimes I feel like just drags on too much.
Right. So finally, they get to telling Regine what's going on, and she's not really accepting of it, or at least doesn't want to believe it. And I liked her early rationale, which is, well, if he's married, how come he doesn't wear a ring? Like, and then he didn't tell me he was married. Like, yeah, obviously he's not going to wear a ring and tell you he's married. That's kind of the whole point of what he's doing, is to hide that.
I think that's I think kind of true to form though. Like you ask those stupid questions. Like I mean, I'm sure most of us has been in like a situation like that where
I've never dated a married man personally.
there are obvious red flags and then your brain just ignores them because you want something else, right? So I think they're just showing her that she's seeing these things but like is obviously ignoring them.
One thing that threw me off was that one of the things she says is she was like, I bet he doesn't pay for anything in cash. I mean, anything with credit cards, just all
Right.
cash, right? Which now that's the complete flip.
Yeah,
So,
that's
like,
not the thing
If you were to
anymore.
be like, we're all going out to dinner. If the five of us went for dinner, we're at a bar or a restaurant, whatever, the check comes, and we're like, okay, split 5 ways, it's going to be $100 a piece, and everybody pulled out like a bunch of 20s and ones, you'd be like, why are you carrying around all this cash? Everyone just put their cards
I mean,
down.
I usually do. I always have a bunch of cash on me.
See, but I'm saying that not everybody doesn't, but most people don't anymore.
But
right?
yeah,
Most
no,
people
in this
just put it on
case,
their card.
yeah, the cash is deliberately to avoid that, which would still, I guess, be a technique today if you don't want all the more so today, it's easier to like check someone's bank information.
Right.
But
Sure, and no issue. I mean, if I have cash, I'll use it obviously for something. But now it would be less of a red flag to be like,
I can't think of the last time I've even carried cash.
yeah, but I think this scene, what was nice about it was you see Maxine, who you've already established earlier, deals as a lawyer with divorce work. So she's seen this 1,000 times, right? So she's going through that list of all these signs of like, oh, is he doing this? Is he doing that? Like you just said. And like, this is her 9 to 5. She's seen this so many times. There's like no way that Regine's going to be able to dispute, what Maxine's telling her.
Yeah, she's basically an expert in shitty dudes cheating on their wives.
And then right as this conversation happens, we get Brad rings the doorbell. And, she runs in and she's very confrontational with them and says like, I know you're married or whatever. And as this is happening, you have the other 3 girls all lined up against the door, which is like a nice little visual, the way they staggered them all with their ear against the door, listening in on the conversation. You have Khadijah basically predicting everything Brad's about to say as he's saying it.
That's also when he comes in, there's Mr. Bigamy now. I love that line so much.
And they're going back and forth. And it ends with, you hear the door shuts because you're like, Maxine's like, this is where, she's going to kick him out. Then you hear the door shut and they like run in to congratulate her for what she did and like being strong, and she's gone. She left with him.
There's also, too, the guy is the best slimy shithead, too, where they're like, he's like, I know you're married, why'd you tell me? And his first response is like, I was going to tell you, baby. Like, he gets so slimy so quickly, which I just love. It's like a great...
He did do a good job of being slimy, yeah.
Yeah, he was perfect.
Yeah,
he was
did.
really good in this one.
But what's called the whole door being the whole like them going out to congratulate her joke didn't work for me because it was established that they could hear everything they were saying, and you never heard her say "get the fuck out" like or anything like that.
That's a very good point, Ferg. I didn't think.
Yeah,
of
I thought
that.
the same thing.
They would have heard both sides of that conversation.
Right,
so them
yeah.
coming out with champagne to be like, "You stood up for yourself," makes zero
You
sense.
go, girl. It's like,
But and then that was the end of that scene. And one thing I wanted to note, because it happened once or twice before this, but before we get into the new scene, they always kind of have those cutaway establishing shots. Whenever they play like the jingle, they play it with the part of the vocals that say "living single," and I hated it. I don't like that they had vocals in the background music to cut from scene to scene. It just doesn't fit.
Yeah, I don't remember. I mean, like, obviously, we're our brains, right? We don't know, but I wonder if that happened throughout the rest of the series or not.
Yeah, because I can't think of other, and I'm sure it's happened, but I can't think of other shows where that would happen. Like, or nothing's coming to mind where there's vocals on like the backing music.
It's more of a movie thing, right? Where like there's songs that are playing sort of in the background in a movie, and your brain accepts it more because you're like, oh, well, there's music happening from scene to scene here. But in a TV show, it kind of jars you because it's so short.
Is that because Queen Latifah? I was going to say, is that because Queen Latifah is? I assume she's the one that performed the song.
She did, but that's not even the part. Like, I don't think she's doing that vocal piece anyway.
She is. She's doing the living.
I don't think she does that
single.
part. I'm not sure, but
I don't remember,
mean,
but I don't think she's doing that part. I think she's
Queen
doing the
Latifah
keep your
just
head up.
raps.
What? Keep your head up. That's right. I think that's
No.
her.
Ferg, I gave you a song that she doesn't rap in at all. Again, if you want to listen to "Cue the Rain" by Queen Latifah, great song.
Or if you want to listen to that song where Eddie Murphy and Michael Jackson get together.
I'll put it at least in like our Instagram story. I'll put it in the story so you get like a nice little 15-second clip.
I was going to say though that the only thing that I could think of is that she wrote the song and she put it in there, knowing that like if it gets played, she gets even more royalty.
if it gets played, she gets paid.
But in anyways,
Yeah.
and because I plugged the Instagram real quick, just want to remind you, S1E1 pod at Instagram is where you can find our Instagram. So give that a follow.
We would appreciate it.
Queen Latifah, if you're listening, give us a follow.
Yeah, give us a follow. So
Or
then,
don't.
the next scene,
What's with your
Khadijah-
anti-Queen Latifah rhetoric? You've the entire day so far. All you've done is anytime we bring her up, you just shit all over. I don't know why. What has she ever done to you?
So now in the new scene, we have Khadijah like kind of yelling on the phone, walking into the living room, and she basically talked about how she got like hung up on by Slappy White's manager / cook. So I'm looking it over because I don't know who Slappy White is, and I'm thinking like maybe that was someone who was like a flash in the pan
good.
celebrity at that time. Slappy White, unless there's another person who went by that name, was a comedian who was in his 70s at the time. Like he died like 2 years after this episode came out. And was this to establish that she's literally called every celebrity humanly
Yeah.
possible, and
He's
we've
the
gotten
bottom
to
of the
Yeah, I
Slappy
think
White?
so.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, was that someone that enough people would recognize the name of?
I'm glad it wasn't just me that didn't know who he was.
Yeah, I had to look
mean,
it up.
I didn't know
Remember
either.
all those comedians and all those people for all of the 60s, 70s, and even into the 80s, they were on like the Dean Martin roasts. They were on Carson. People were seeing them, right? Especially when there was less TV channels. So like
Carson
I think if you
Daly?
grew up in the yeah, they were on live with Carson.
Did they
Daly.
learn about karma?
So if they, Jesus,
This is like the today equivalent of getting hung up on by like Carrot Top's manager.
I just thought that where he was already like a 71-year-old man at the time, it was like, how many people are going to get that joke?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was like people of their generation probably did because they grew up with like those people being the sort of like last stand-in guest on Carson at the last 10 minutes does some comedy bits and they just, go away. A less successful Red Fox or something.
So as she enters the living room and hangs up, everybody, again, except Regine is in the room, including Overton and Kyle. And they're all talking about this whole situation with her and, going out with Brad, who's married. And this is probably my favorite part of the entire episode is when Overton says that he once dated a married woman. And when Sinclair's like, really? He goes, nah, I'm just lying. I'm trying to get attention again.
I got that.
And like
That
he
one
had
got
like
me.
such this like innocent like little smirk on his face as he said it. And like, I don't know why. Easily my favorite line of the entire episode is when that
so
happens.
lovable, and you want
Yeah.
him and Sinclair to get together because it's so cute.
And then Regine eventually enters the room because she's on her way to her date. So she's dressed to the 10. She's ready to go. And
Was she looking fine?
she's
She is
looking
looking
fine. And she's giving all the classic excuses, right? She's the mistress who doesn't want to think she's the mistress. So, no, he's leaving his wife. Like, it's all fine. Like, why you don't... Basically, she doesn't want the judgment from her friends because she's clearly doing something wrong. But she wants to believe that Brad's going to leave his wife.
And that he's gonna, get with her. And
He's
make
gonna
it
leave her.
official.
He's gonna leave his wife, and then he's gonna marry me. It's like the classic. I was gonna
The
tell you,
classic
baby.
scummy
The
guy.
is
Yeah, I was
so
gonna tell
slimy.
you. I was just waiting for the right time.
This all spawns this big argument with Khadijah and her back and forth. And I really like that this whole thing is like, fine, then just leave. And like this big argument, like her dating Brad is going to like almost end their friendship at this point. And that's when she goes, Khadijah don't need you. And I'm like, was this intended to be like
Her
a
catchphrase.
line? Like, was this going to be like her catchphrase? Like, cause that does not come off natural to say Khadijah don't need you.
I don't know, but we're looking for new merch ideas. I think an S1E1 shirt that says "Khadijah don't need you" is definitely in the works.
We could probably make
Right
something
up there
happen.
behind Who's Boner.
They're at the Who's Boner and Welcome to Fergburg from a few weeks ago.
And bonkers.
And Bonkers.
And Joe's, I only use outhouses near cathedrals or whatever.
As long as Rue McClanahan is around.
Get your free water cookies.
Water cookies are delicious and nutritious and good for you.
Ew.
It's just water. It's just an ice cube. Just
with
because it's in a
pee-pee on it.
urinal doesn't make it still a water cookie when it's an ice cube in your glass. It's not only a water cookie when it's in a urinal.
So what makes it not a water? What's the difference between an ice cube and a water cookie? I thought it being in the urinal
There is
made
none.
it the
It's just
water
another
cookie.
name for an ice cube.
Why cookie, though? Why can't
I
it be
don't-
like a
I'm
toilet
sure I didn't
cube?
invent this. I honestly did not come up with this term. It's somebody said it.
It
One
would
day,
be
and I'm
like
sure I
the
thought it was
third
funny.
one so far. So, I mean, you've already...
I may have made up my own terms for, and that's great. They're going to get into our cultural lexicon, for I'm sure. I think that water cookie is actually a league reference. I think Ruxin says it.
Oh, baby Jeffrey eats one.
Yes.
And for those of you listening, we mentioned the league. The league's going to be our next week's episode. Usually we don't tell you ahead of time, but since it got mentioned, I'll spill the beans right now. Next week we'll be covering the league.
And you'll be able to find out the origin of why my brain thinks of ice cubes as water cookies. Thank you, Nick Kroll.
But anyway, so during this argument, Regine leaves and then quickly walks back in because she realizes that Brad's picking her up. So she's sitting on the couch just waiting for him to show up. We get flashed to later on where it's clearly much later in the night. Brad stood her up, never showed up. Now she's distraught, eating lots of snacks to cope. Did you see it going this way? Did you think it was going to end with just a straight up... I thought that was kind of a weird way to end that story where he's kind of the bad guy here. Yeah, just to ghost it seemed like a weird resolve.
It
But
was a weird way because she didn't get her redemption. Like, I'm better than this, blah, blah, blah. Like,
Yeah.
she was going to go with the fucking guy, and then he stood her up. So she really didn't learn anything other than he's a scumbag.
It makes sense to me, though, because I assume part of that guy's game is the, like, fun of the lie. Of being
Yeah.
like, you don't know I'm married, this is exciting for me or whatever. So when the girl finds out, yeah, then the game's over. So he just moves on to the next girl. And it seems like everybody, I mean, when we saw him walk into the room with all the other girls, every girl was like into him. So I imagine he's like, well, this isn't going to be hard. So I'm just going to go find another girl who doesn't know and play
Right.
the game again.
And all the other girls are trying to talk her up now because now that she's kind of landed face first, now they're trying to boost her up a little bit. And Max is telling her, you keep looking for someone to carry you. And she's like, well, what's wrong with that? And then Khadijah goes, because they keep dropping your ass.
I thought that was good.
Is
yeah.
this also when they all woke up Or did this happen after?
It was right at that time, yeah.
Because they all like fell asleep eating snack food.
I felt like Khadijah fell asleep. I don't know. It was a little weird way to transition the time. It looked like they had to have her wake up to make it look like a lot of time passed. But I don't know if everyone fell asleep. Maybe it was just Khadijah. I really don't know.
No, I just thought that struck me as odd that like Sinclair and Regina were the only ones that were up,
Right.
that were eating, and then the rest of everybody was just asleep.
They wanted to show you that she'd been waiting a long time for Brad to come, and he never did. And then, the girls are telling her that she can basically have whatever she wants in life. She doesn't need a guy to get it for her. And, it's a good moment. Probably the first time all four of them were really bonding together because, throughout the episode, because of the situation, Regine was really disconnected from the other three. This is the first time you kind of get the four girls all together as one, really, like supporting one another.
This is when men are like cheap pantyhose. They always run on you at the worst time.
Yes, and then it was also discussed that when they said, what would the world be like without men? And Khadijah says, a bunch of fat, happy women with no crime.
So
I'll take that. Like, honestly, most of the crime is us, right? Like, it's a really, really good chunk.
We're mainly the problem. I mean,
Yeah,
I think
it's a lot of
foolish
us.
to think otherwise.
Touche, yeah.
So I'll give you that. And then we get to the next scene is just basically the magazine's out. I think they're all like in the bathroom. And the magazine came out. She never
Group deucing.
She never found a like a celebrity
One toilet
for the
group
cover.
using.
They were getting water cookies.
That would have been the kitchen.
Yeah, so anyways,
Why?
so everyone's there. There's no celebrity cover. They basically just, what happened was Khadijah essentially wrote an article that was inspired by Regine's situation. And it was basically about like cheating men. And, again, it's just like a little closing episode. This scene was too corny for me.
The article, I think, is called Dating Married Men, Sleeping Dogs That Lie, which is a great article title. Yeah.
Okay. And so now they're all in the bathroom, and then My Girl starts playing, and then
Just the music of My Girl.
Right. So this is what
Yeah, an acapella / karaoke version of My Girl.
What
starts
channel
playing
is that?
in there.
Yeah, they're all just sitting there at night getting ready for bed. And Maxine, I guess, didn't take a cue, so she's just still hanging out, like fully dressed, because like the rest of them were all in their pajamas,
She hasn't
ready to
gone
go to
home
bed.
yet.
Yeah, she's just still hanging out.
No, it's the next morning because she comes in with the paper. And she's
Was
like,
it the next
it's a
morning?
hit.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you're right.
They're
getting ready for work, and she's up. Ferg, good call.
Okay, I'll give you that. All right. So
Why I'm here.
we finally figured it out why Ferg's here. And so My Girl starts playing, and Khadijah grabs like a hair straightener, and she's just like singing. And then we get them kind of one at a time, right? Regine joins, and then Max and
Hairbrushes, toilet
and Sinclair.
brushes.
Yeah,
Dildos.
Nope.
First thing I thought of, I was like, is anybody gonna make fun of
I
me?
was
and
waiting
just
for it. I
assume
really
that
was.
I
I'm not
called them
making
all
a joke.
dildos.
No,
I mean, to
but,
be fair, what is a table if you don't sit on it? Or what's a chair if you don't sit
You've
on it?
used
It's a
that
table.
weird joke too before.
You used it
Not
as
a joke.
flashlight joke. Damn it.
I'm just saying,
It's a new
anything. A
material.
toilet brush can be a dildo if you use it as a dildo.
Okay. Well, anyway, so they're all singing to My Girl at this point and having their bonding moment. But yeah, as Ferg mentioned before, what bothered me about this was it was an a cappella it was a karaoke version of the song. Why would that be on the radio? It's like, oh man, remember this song? It's like, what karaoke radio station are you listening to? Yeah.
Yeah, like I guess now, I'm sure there's probably like a Sirius channel that pops up that streams the words and plays a cappella. So like if you're like in the car and you want to just sing or whatever, but like there's no terrestrial radio station in 1993 that's just playing a cappella versions of songs.
And that was the thing. It was like, listen, I get it's a TV show and like you take liberties sometimes, but this scene was so forced. And
This
like,
was equal to Country Comfort basement scene for me.
No.
It
Let's
didn't make
not
me
go that
quite as
crazy.
angry because at least this was just like girls getting ready in the morning and singing, as opposed to like a hurricane is coming through, a tornado, and like they're all fearful of their lives and start playing. So again, and to those who want to go through the
That's
archives,
Mama's toilet brush, and nobody's cleaned the toilet without Mama's toilet brush for 2 years.
yeah, Country Comfort, episode 9, I believe. So if you guys want to go back, I think Comfort might have been episode 9, but you'll find it. Just go through the feed and you'll find it in our old episodes. I highly recommend listening to that episode. Judge us by that one, not by this one.
Country Comfort is always my like gauge of how shitty a show is. I'm like, well, that reminds me of this in Country Comfort.
It's baseline shit. Yeah.
It's like, is this better or worse than Country Comfort? And if you somehow strike into being worse than Country Comfort, Satan help you.
Right. And but to get into it now, like that's the end of the episode. We've covered all of the first episode of Living Single. Anything else you guys want to touch on about the show in general before we move on?
just want to say Sinclair still does it for me after all these years. I don't know, something about her personality.
Yeah, I mean, a bunch of babes, a bunch of good actors, a bunch of people who didn't go on to do a ton of stuff, which I think is kind of surprising.
Well, I feel like when you look at that, Queen Latifah, obviously, and Kim Fields already kind of had a huge career.
No, I mean, mainly I think it's just T.C. Carter and Overton and Kyle and
Yeah, they didn't really. I mean, nothing I could think. I'm sure I'm sure they pop up.
Where
and
do you
stuff.
go from Ovaltine?
Kyle ended up doing like a huge amount of video game stuff. Like to this day, his video game credits are like pages long. So I mean, I'm sure he's making good money doing that. But I'm just surprised because they all have good presence. They're all good on screen. I'm just surprised they didn't do as much. Like Overton hasn't done very much. I mean, I know he got in some crazy accident where he had to get his whole face reconstructed, like a Brutus Beefcake thing a couple years ago. So that may have kind of hindered him rather. But yeah, we all seemed to watch it at some point when it was on, and we were super young. We've been 8 when this show came on, right? So we were not the demographic for it, but we all did. It was all good then.
Well, yeah, and that's something, I think that's a good point and something that should get mentioned. When you look at a show like this, right, and this show was created, so Queen Latifah was a big part of the developmental, and it was to have a show featuring a bunch of prominent, black women in strong roles and independent, and listen, we weren't the target audience when it came out as like very, very young children. And even now in like our mid 30s, like a bunch of white guys, again, aren't necessarily the target audience they were looking for.
Yeah,
that's true.
But I think the show resonates. There's something about it. And I think this happens with a lot of like.
Did you get a Friends vibe from it?
Well,
No.
people had said, I said earlier, people think that Friends may have been inspired by this show. And there's a lot of people who link
The
that.
only thing that I got from Friends was I kept thinking Sinclair was
Like a Phoebe.
Phoebe.
yeah.
The wacky character, but also a Kramer. Every show had that sort of weird wacky character then, yeah.
No, but there was something specifically about Sinclair that made me almost think of Lisa Kudrow and Phoebe. And I don't know what it was, but that's the connection that I made.
Yeah, and Queen Latifah was Monica.
Well, this was again, but it wasn't. The thing would be that it would be that Phoebe was Sinclair.
I'm just
and
saying
Monica
for a comparison.
was
I'm not
Khadijah.
saying they copied Friends.
Right.
I'm just saying
Right. Well, that's
all have
those
no,
are
but
their
again,
names, though.
that's the thing is that Friends came out after Living Single, and a lot of people think that it was directly inspired by Living Single, which you can see a lot of comparisons when you see the ensemble.
Yeah, I mean,
and-
you can draw lines to every show one way or the other.
Ovaltine is a lot like Joey.
There's 6 people here in this cast, and there was also 6
Yeah.
people
right, and I
on
don't think
Friends,
the show is developed
so-
to be a copy of it by any chance. But do I think that there may have been some inspiration there? For sure. Like, there's a lot of things you can draw to. But yeah, like I wanted to say that it's a show that for whatever reason resonated with us when we were kids, and then today, and there's a lot of relatable things again where we weren't even the target audience. But I kind of think of it like weeks, maybe like a couple months ago, we put out our That 70s Show episode, and it's the same thing when you have like camaraderie in a show about a group of friends and how they interact with each other. If the chemistry is there between the cast and like that, the friendships seem real. There's something that is relatable when you think about you and your friends. And I think that's what sticks. And that's why it doesn't matter that a bunch of, in 93, a bunch of 7-year-old, like young boys could still resonate with a show that was about a bunch of like, late 20s black women. It was just because like the friendships and the bonds between them are relatable. And I think
And the jokes are good.
Yeah. And there's something to be said about that.
Yeah, and after Joe said it, I looked it up. He is the voice of Kratos in God of War. I know you're a huge fan.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He's done it. He's
That's
right. He
awesome.
has done a ton of
Original
video.
Kratos or
he's all of the Kratos. He's
second
even
one?
the one in Mortal Kombat.
Because they replaced Kratos in the newest game. It's a different person.
Oh, so maybe the newest one? Then yeah. But everything Kratos in the 2000s.
So all the original ones. That's
Yeah.
awesome. I'm even bigger fan now. Go.
Well,
Ovaltine.
anyway, so I think we've covered it all. So I think the only logical thing to do at this point is get into our green light or cancel. So I'm going to go into the order I see you on my screen. So Gordo started off green light or cancel.
I'm going to say green light. I thought this was the show was authentic. I think that you really touched on it. That the show, the cast was authentic. The jokes were there. I can't see myself not, like, I wanted to watch a second episode. So, yeah, it's a green light for me. 100% of it, 100%. It was funny enough. I want to see more.
Joe.
Yeah, I mean, to piggyback on what both of you just said, I think the fact that we weren't the demographic for it then and aren't now, and it's always been enjoyable, stands on its own. I think the fact that I can still sing most of the theme song in 2021 makes a point for it. And Gordo, he said, you want to watch a second episode? I never watch a second episode of anything. I always go in fresh. Last night I watched episode 2 of this. The second one started and I was like, kicked my feet up and was like, all right, we're going for it. I don't care. So I mean, if that's the case, and I've never done that before, even though I am Captain Greenlight most of the time, unsurprisingly, I will be greenlighting this show as well.
Ferg.
Well, so this show, like I said, I watched it as a kid, loved it. I love Ovaltine. I love Sinclair. Wasn't a big fan of Queen Latifah's character in it, but I like the rest.
As we noticed with this episode.
Tell the whole time.
And I was gonna greenlight this show until that last scene, and I hated that last scene so much that it's getting canceled. Sorry, guys.
Nick.
I didn't like this show. This was my first time watching it. I didn't really remember it at all. Having said that, I am going to greenlight it because there was some sort of indescribable. I wanted to keep watching it. Like I wasn't thrilled by it. I wasn't, overly captivated by anything in the show. I personally didn't like Queen Latifah's character at all either. But I think the rest of the ensemble did a good job enough for me to at least see what happens. I would be very judgmental on the second episode though, but I will greenlight the first one.
All right, so for me, listen, this is also going to be a green light for me, and I just went into it a few minutes ago, so I don't want to go too long, but I just think it's relatable. I think there was a lot of funny jokes in there. I think the episode for me felt like it flew right by. Like I didn't feel like homework watching it. And I talk about this all the time, but what it comes down to is how much do I want to watch episode 2 after I finish? And I did want to keep watching. I didn't, but because we're not supposed to, but I didn't. Sorry, Joe. Yeah, but yeah, I like the show and it did hold up. And I hadn't watched it since really its original run. Some syndication, I'm sure, but I didn't have any vivid memories of watching it in the last 20 years or so. And I jumped right in, enjoyed it as much as I remembered enjoying it, and wanted to keep watching. So it's a green light for me. So that's it, guys. That's 4 out of 5 of us are giving it the green light. So congratulations to Living Single. You do live on to see another day. For those of you who want to watch Living Single, you can find it on Hulu. So go to Hulu if you want to be able to watch Living Single. And that's it. That's all we got for this week, guys. Be sure to go to S1E1pod.com. That's the link to all our social medias, everywhere you can listen to us. And when you do go to Spotify or Apple or whatnot, make sure that you're going to subscribe, do all that fun stuff. Leave a review on iTunes. That stuff does a lot for us. I stress it every week. It means a lot. It helps us. We really appreciate it. Come to us, contact us about how you feel about the show. If there's anything you want us to cover, anything you do or don't like about the show, let us know. We love your feedback. Thank you, everyone, for reaching out. So that's it. That's all we got for this week. Thank you. Goodbye.
Rue McClanahan lives.